when Kenny, along with three of his teammates from the U.S. Army Special Forces, embarks on a mission to rescue a highly ranked CIA agent. He must endure challenging incidents along the way. He is forced to face various enemies and terrorists, losing his friends on the battlefield, enduring torture, and encountering various dangers. In this movie, the fate of this Army captain and the events that unfold depict him as a courageous individual.
A group of U.S. Army Special Forces unite with each other to rescue a high-ranking operative in CIA. In this operation at the U.S. Army Aviation Division base in Las Vegas, Captain Eddie Reaper, an Air Force pilot who flies drones, along with his colleague Sergeant Staff Nia Bronson, are supposed to provide aerial support using drones for the Delta Force Special Forces in the rescue mission. The military officers head to a location in the southern Philippines to rescue the CIA spy. Reaper informs the other military personnel who are watching a basketball game that his wife is pregnant. He emphasizes that if the Delta Force calls and he's not at the base, they must answer and quickly get in touch with him about their needs. Later on in the control room, Reaper and Bronson take control of the drone and guide it towards the operational headquarters where the Special Forces are conducting the mission. Kenny, Sugar, Bishop, and Abel, as the four Delta Force military personnel, cautiously approach the enemy headquarters in the jungle. Suddenly, they realize that the aerial drone support is facing technical issues, and the visual communication is lost. Immediately, the group decides to attack them with classic procedures.
If you enjoy our content, please support us by subscribing or liking, so we can recap more films for you.
While all the military personnel inside the base were watching a basketball game, the phone rings. After Eddie answers, expressing his dissatisfaction that no one is paying attention, the operatives waiting for their target realize that in the headquarters of a paramilitary group affiliated with Abu Sayyaf, whose leader is a terrorist named Saeed Hashemi, there is likely an attempt to buy weapons and negotiate with Petrov, who is affiliated with the KGB. They also have connections with a CIA agent they want to save. Meanwhile, Nia Bronson tells Eddie that the drone has been repaired and prepared, and he needs to take control of guiding it. At the same time, the forces realize that Saeed Hashemi is betraying Petrov, and before the deal, he shoots him from behind, injuring him. The Abu Sayyaf militants attack unarmed individuals, and while Petrov is brought in injured from behind, they make him watch the scene of his wife's murder. Saeed Hashemi ruthlessly beheads Petrov's wife with a machete, proclaiming Allahu Akbar. Kenny, known as Playboy, informs Eddie Ripper that they need artillery fire to strike Saeed Hashemi's men. Eddie Ripper gets ready to launch a Hellfire missile. Meanwhile, he also have Petrov's son and want to kill him in front of his father. Ripper announces that the missile will hit in 30 seconds, but Abel says they don't have time and shoots Saeed Hashemi's leg before the missile launches at the area. The missile hits the area, causing chaos. Civilians and especially Petrov's son run away. Sugar realizes that under where Kenny is hiding, a group of enemies, mainly Filipinos, comes out of hiding like a ghost. He warns Kenny not to move so they won't notice him, and he orders Bishop and Abel to eliminate the forces together. Gunfire erupts and a grenade falls near Kenny. He immediately throws it away. Later, the forces attack, trying to eliminate them. Unfortunately, Abel gets shot during the fight. In the midst of the battle, enemy support arrives and attacks with an RPG. Abel kills the enemies with his handgun, but when Kenny arrives, it's too late, and they lose Abel. Kenny then contacts Sugar, who says they need an airstrike now because they are under attack by two RPG gunners. In the continuation of the back and forth between the military forces, Kenny moves away from the battlefield to provide Reaper with precise information for another aerial attack. Then, Reaper launches another missile to hit a target within 20 seconds. Just before the missile hits its target, RPG Gunner accurately targets the disappearing location of Bishop and Sugar, severing Kenny's communication with them entirely. With no knowledge of their survival, the missile hits and eliminates some of the enemies. Subsequently, a vehicle approaches with heavy firepower, forcing Kenny to flee and eventually find cover among trees in a secluded corner, attempting to establish contact with Reaper. He informs Reaper that all our people are killed and he is alone. Kenny is scared and desperate, asking them to assess the situation for him. He must traverse 5 kilometers to reach another extraction point amid enemy forces from the east and west. Reaper responds by dispatching a helicopter and support troops to the designated location to give Kenny hope. Further along the route, enemy trucks and military personnel encircle Kenny from the east and west. Via aerial support, Reaper instructs him to hide somewhere. Some of the enemies on horseback pass by the water with a dog. Suddenly, the dog approaches Kenny's hidden spot and starts barking. At the moment, the dog notices its owner nearby and retreats, averting danger away from Kenny. Then Kenny approaches the designated location and spots the helicopter and gets shot by enemies, but fortunately the bullet hits with his own shell-proof. Suddenly, the enemies fire RPGs at the helicopter. Due to the large number of enemies, the helicopter fails to land in the area. In the dark of the night, amidst a swarm of enemies armed with all kinds of weapons and RPGs, Kenny finds himself in a fierce battle. The Reaper, with a drone, fires another missile, taking out a group of enemies. Still engaged with the enemies, another car pulls up, equipped with night vision cameras. Kenny requests another missile, but the Reaper announces that he's run out of ammo and that support is coming from a new unit named the Hornet. Just then, the Hornet, a fighter jet, arrives at the spot and establishes communication with Kenny. Kenny quickly asks for a missile to be fired. After the shots, multiple enemies are neutralized. However, Kenny notices that enemies are attacking from the west. Despite being in danger himself, he requests another missile and then retreats to safety. The missile strikes, wiping out a large number of enemies, and Kenny escapes unscathed. As Kenny moves away from the area and continues his way, he suddenly slips and falls into the water, realizing he has lost his weapon. With only his trusty sidearm, Reaper and Nia tell him about enemies, and he faces 3 armed individuals approaching him. He fights back but realizes he's outnumbered and decides to flee. Running towards a waterfall, he jumps down, finding a moment of respite, but they find him and capturing him with gunpoint. In the next scene, the Reaper has lost track of Kenny, losing communication. Kenny is then shown being tied up, tortured, and whipped. Suddenly, Sugar, whom they thought was dead, miraculously reappears in a hoodie, taking out the enemies and freeing Kenny. They gear up and arm themselves, continuing on their path in pairs. Near a hill, Playboy tells Sugar to give him the knife. Using some quick thinking, Kenny rigs up a signal booster to establish contact with Reaper via satellite waves and satellite phone, letting him know he's alive and still on the mission. Reaper informs them not to pursue the CIA agent anymore, as news suggests their people have successfully brought him back safely. However, Kenny reveals they are actually looking to rescue one of their own forces, Bishop, not the CIA agent. As they approach the enemy force's headquarters, Kenny contacts Reaper and outlines his attack plan. 3 missile strikes, 2 meant to distract the enemy, and the last to destroy all forces. However, Reaper's superior insists. Reaper steps back from the operation and forces him to leave. Reaper then assigning someone else the task while explaining the strategy to him. Kenny and Sugar enter the area, hoping for aerial support. They ambush a group from behind using cold weapons. Through specific tactics, they handle each enemy as they come, aiding each other in combat. Eventually, a grenade comes their way and they throw it further before it explodes, plunging everything into darkness. In the next scene, it's revealed that Kenny and Sugar have been captured and imprisoned, and they see Bishop there. In a brutal act, Saeed's members grab Sugar, filming and ruthlessly while filming shoot him in the head. Reaper, unaware of the situation, is busy shopping for his spouse in a store. Meanwhile, they take Kenny again, and Saeed tries to interrogate him, but Kenny remains silent. Saeed hits Kenny with a hammer, causing his tooth to fall out. He then orders his men to torture Kenny further, submerging his head underwater to suffocate him or make him talk. Meanwhile, a substitute for Reaper launches some missiles, causing chaos. Kenny's life hangs by a thread. So, in that situation, Kenny keeps going on his own path and ends up saving one of his own people. Then he confronts Saeed Hashemi and truly avenges him and gets rid of him. Afterwards, he frees Bishop, and just as Air Forces was planning to bomb the place since there was no information about Kenny and Bishop's survival, the operator who takes control instead of Reaper intends to bomb it. Kenny then trying to communicate with the base via his satellite phone, but a foolish army guy doesn't give the right answer, claiming that Reaper is gone, and hangs up the phone. Meanwhile, as the fighter jets were about to explode the area, Kenny manages to send a voice message to Reaper's personal phone. Suddenly, Reaper listens to the voice message and rushes towards the base with all his might. He tries to get there quickly and arrives just in time when only a few seconds are left before firing the missile. He informs the control room that Kenny and Bishop are there, and the stop order is issued to the jets to veer away. When the operation is over and Ken and Bishop are on their way back home, Reaper appears in a striking manner and congratulates everyone, calling it a great honor for the United States of America. He then smashing the television in the room with his golf club and defiantly tells his superior to reduce his payment from the full-time service bonus as a cost. In the final scene of the movie, Nia tells Reaper, "My wedding is coming up soon, and I'd love for you to escort me as the guest of honor." The two of them then perform a beautiful dance in the airport courtyard, and the movie ends. Hope you enjoyed.
Have fun, but don't forget to subscribe and like. Love you guys. See ya.